Hi everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe, and part one of a brand new build. This is the 1/24th scale space pod from the great television series created by Irwin Allen, Lost in Space. And interesting, not really my first choice, I got to be honest with you, in models that I would want, that I get excited about wanting to build. But it's a cool little kit. But do not get fooled by this cool little kit, because this little box, which isn't easy to open, by the way, it's packed in there. But this little box, okay, packs a wallop. Do not be fooled by this box. And I'll tell you why. You don't want to be fooled by the box, because if you are a novice builder, or you've not built a lot of kits, I wouldn't say this is the first thing to go to. Somebody goes to a model shop or looks online and goes, oh, that seems harmless enough, I'll get it as a gift. Well, it's okay. I mean, it's good to have in your stash, but I'll tell you, not the easiest of kits. So there you go. Couple of things. There are some very specific ways you've got some things you got to think about when you build this model, and I'll tell you the two gripes that I have. Gripe number one is, as I'm going through my inventory, and as the great Lou Del Maso always says, meeting my parts, I come across the door, and look at this, a sheared off middle hinge and a bottom hinge that is a little warped. Look at that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to reach out to Mobius and get a replacement part. They are pretty good about that. I don't know whether it'll be here in time for us to use it, because I don't know how long this build's going to be. If it's going to be 2 episodes or not, I don't know. We'll see. But that was gripe number one. Gripe number two is the instructions. Okay, this is gripe number two. Okay, so you get a sheet like this, and you get the whole front page, giving you some history about the kit, and telling you a little bit about how the various different models were built, and who built them, and how they were used. So that's cool. And here's your instructions. These are not step-by-step instructions. These are, okay, use these parts here, use these parts here, use these parts here, use these parts here. Here's some paint on the back. And good luck. All right, I'm being a little facetious, but that's kind of how it feels, It felt like when they put this together, whoever did it sent it like this, and they never fixed it, or they never went to the trouble to try and give you step by step. So if you're somebody like me, who this just hurts my head, it's not the greatest. So, but anyway, I'm going to do the best I can, quit whining, and carry on. In basically meeting the parts, there's a couple of things. You sort of look at pre-assemblies and figuring out what you can do. And one of the things going out of the gate is you've got a lot of these raised surfaces, right? Now, if you're going to light this, and we're going to put some light in this, all of these have to be ground down for the great Paragraphix. Here they are. I pulled it out for you, but here it is. This is the Photoetch enhancement set. This is PGX 103. And I do recommend, if you're going to build this, you got to get the detail set, because it comes with some very cool decals, which replace the ones that come with the kit. So the ones that come with the kit are in this pouch that has the clear parts in it, which I am opening reluctantly, because me and clear parts, you know, scratch and break very easily. Okay, but here is the decal set. Now, it's a punchy little decal set, but it is slightly different than the ones the Paragraphix come with. So, you know, pick your poison. I think some of the big differences are the red, white, and blue bars, obviously, on this one are a little fatter and wider. And on the Paragraphix piece, they're not as pronounced. The white bar is, let me get my fat head out of the way, is not as pronounced. Now in the Paragraphix kit, you do get some gauges. You get a little oxygen sign for your oxygen bottle, and you get a couple of these LOX stickers or decals. So that's very cool. So I've got some choices when it comes to decals, and that's always a good thing. The actual Photoetch set, which is very cool, gives you window frames. It gives you some side panels for your girders, and when you sort of going through all of this, you'll notice this piece here, and it's just plain. And so the Photoetch gives you these little side pieces for you to put on, which are very cool. You obviously get all of your control surfaces, which are terrific. Some of these are for the actual control, for the controls themselves. And some of those, here they are. I'm sorry, I wasn't very well prepared here. And some of these are for here. So, you know, it's all has to be carefully ground down if you're going to use the Photoetch. Some other issues. The front control panel, if you want to light it, you've got a piece here you've got to chew out. And then if you want to put lights on these four lights here, they've got to be drilled out very carefully so you don't chew up. There's a little sort of base behind it, and then there's what appears to be the lens on top of it. So we'll drill those out carefully with a little hand drill, and we'll replace that with some clear acrylic, and we'll put some light behind that, and we'll get some light on that, and then we'll obviously have to figure out what we're doing here just to get some light behind here. Most likely, what we'll do is just chew out this whole piece, and then we'll get some light, so we can get some light behind this control board. I don't think we'll go super crazy, but we'll see, because we don't have an awful lot of room inside. The side panels. This is the left panel. We've got this instrument panel to replace here. And then on the opposite wall, which is sort of where all the business is really, you've got 3 panels, actually 4, that you can replace. And so, and you know, you could, for all intents and purposes, get light behind here, but we'll see. We'll figure that out. And interestingly enough, there are some assembly issues, some sub-assembly issues. You do have to be careful. An example of being careful is this piece this piece here that sits on the bottom of these of the control surface here sits at a very odd angle, and then so if I hold that flush, you can see there's a bit of gappage here, and what's curious about that is that this piece is supposed to sit in your floor panel. Here's your floor panel here, and so this piece here sits like that. So you've got to get your angle correct when you put this in so that this sits nicely under here and doesn't lift up, because if it lifts up at all, it raises these 2 points right here, and you get an ugly gap. And so if you look at the side of this, this is all on strange angles. So you've got to think about that in your while you're doing your sub assemblies. So again, you know, fiddly, not huge, so you can work with it in front of you on the bench, which is great, but it's fiddly. So what we're going to do for step 1 is we're going to get a primer coat on everything, wash it in some detergent, get everything dry, get a primer coat on everything, and then start looking at some of these sub-assemblies, because things like these little boxes here, which are quite tiny, this box has one of the joysticks that sit in it, like that, and then that sits, that's got a little knob on it right there that faces us, and then that is going to get plugged into the top of this control board right here. And so that all has to be painted and dealt with in your sub-assembly, because if you try to do it afterwards, you'll get slop everywhere. So we'll start with some primer. We'll get primer on everything. I'm going to get the fusion core. It's a mini fusion core from Ralph over at Tenor Controls. We're going to put the mini fusion core in here, which, you know, not without its difficulty, because if you're going to leave the door open so we can look in to this pod, right? So the rear of the pod is the entrance to it, and the front of the pod, where your the windows are, the screens, the glass windows, that allows you to sort of look through the front, right? So you've got lots of opportunities here to see into the pod. But if you're going to use the fusion core, you got to run the wires somehow into your base if you're going to put it on a base, which means that you know, it kind of has to be elevated if you're really going to look at it. So a lot of disappointment there, but I do think it needs its fusion core. I think if you're going to build any of the Owen Allen ships that require it, well, of course, it's just only the Jupiter 2 and this. But it's just such a quintessential part of it, right? You know, you kind of got to have your fusion core, so we'll put one in. Okay, so once again, sounding like a broken record, prime everything, and I mean everything. We'll start picking out details in some of the small parts that have to go on the walls. We'll get all that done because they require a little bit of tugging and pulling to get paint on it and get them dry. And then we can start thinking about light. So we'll do that in the next segment, okay? I'm enjoying myself. He says with a very straight face. No, seriously. You can have a lot of fun with this kit. And I put a little bit of sort of engineering thought into it, but not a lot. you have to be brave and try to sort of dry fit everything yourself. Make sure you understand where all the parts go, and then you're okay. Basically, with this kit, you build the inside shell and the outside shell together. You put it all together, and you drop it onto its base, and then you finish up by putting all the exterior stuff on it. The legs on this are clearly very, very weak, so it'll be the last thing we go on. You don't want to put them on and then stand it and try to play with it or push it or whatever. You'll just snap them. They're not very good. And then, of course, you know, figuring out just exactly what we're doing here with a base. We're going to put this on a base, just a little square frame that I'm going to build a little kind of planetscape on, and just have it sit on that with perhaps a plaque that I might see if I can coerce the great Jeff Fink into designing for me, so I can print it out like I did with my Voyage plaque, because I think they look really good. So I have put a coat of paint primer, I should say, on everything, just to kind of help the paint bite. I'm going to stick with Tamiya's, I think, for the whole thing. There's no reason not to. There's a couple of things. As you recall, in the kind of opening segment, I showed you my door, which had a broken center. Well, here it is. It's the center hinge was not in existence when I opened the box. It was snapped, just like this. So I suspect, based on the way this looks, that it either just snapped off during packaging, or it just didn't get through the mold correctly and nobody caught it. Now, I'm going to try and fashion something. I think I have a way to fix this on my own. I have reached out to Mobius customer service, but it's been about a week now, and I've not heard anything. So that's not very encouraging. There's no phone number anywhere, so I know that now Pegasus owns them. I could probably call the Pegasus shop, which is here in California, and see what they could do for me. But most likely they'll say nothing to do with us. You have to reach out through the email, which I've done, and we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted. But so far, nothing. So I've got a lower hinge that's slightly warped. I've got no center hinge, but I do have a way to kind of scratch build something for the center that I think will be fine. I've got some stuff in my stash, little metal parts that I used. Actually used them on my Orca that I think might work there, so that'll be okay. The other bizarre one was this one. Now I'm gonna, you know, obviously get it. We'll get it there, but there's a massive hole here. Like a gouge in the plastic. It's just bizarre. And when I put my finger in it, I mean, you can feel it. It's a real dent. So I'll just put a little putty on that. But it's just one of those things where I guess you're dealing with stuff that comes out of a mold, and you can see this sort of weird line goes all the way across it. So definitely something to do with the printing, but no big deal. I don't want you to think I'm whining, because I am. But anyway, I just thought it was wackadoodle. So I'll put a little putty on there, and it's not in a place where it's really going to be seen. But everything is looking good. I've got all my panels drying. So what I will do is I'll sort of start to do a test fit of everything, and we'll start to see where it goes. Now, I've decided that I'm going to put some light in the front here. Let me grab these, because I should have grabbed these and I didn't. So talk amongst yourselves, go get a cup of coffee, and I will be right back. Sorry about that. But what I've done is I made a couple of decisions in terms of lighting. I'm not going to go whole hog on the lighting on this kit, not because you can't, but it's just I've got so many other things that I want to get to this year that I don't want to spend another week or two trying to figure it out. And I don't want I don't want that to come across like I don't care. It's just that some models I really want to put that kind of effort into and others I don't. This is a great little kit, but it's not going to get that much lighting. However, here's the front of the beast, right? The classic front. And right here you'll see, well, let me get you closer. There you'll see I've got two little pieces of tape just so that I have a nice gluing surface. But I've got two lights in here, two blinkies, Evans Design blinkies. I cut a little bit of card to hide the holes. And the wires, as you can see, are just creeping up the side here, along the very tippy top and down the sides. And when you put your control console on here, these wires are not in the frame. They disappear off to the side, and they'll come through underneath. I've also put lights, regular light, not flashes, in the 4 bulbs, and so they'll be white lights just as they are in the actual piece. And then for the console, I have opened up quite a bit of the console. I taped it here just so that my Photoetch surface is nice and clean. But I put a little SMD strip behind that, or I will put an SMD strip behind that. Here that is, and that's going to sit on this little shelf here, and that will, just like that, and that will give me light to the console. And I can put various different Tamiya colors behind that, just to give it some warmth and have it feel like it's alive. And that is the extent of the lighting that I'm going to do. I'm not going to light the side panels. I'm not going to have any blinkies or flashes on those. I've decided against it. Now, the one other thing I am lighting, though, obviously, is my fusion core. And here that is. There is a hood here. Well, I call it a hood, but it's probably some kind of, it's supposed to be some kind of an engine cone, and that sits here. Now this is the fusion core, the mini fusion core that comes from Ralph over at Tenor Controls. I don't know if there's anyone else selling the mini fusion core, but here it is in all of its glory. Now what I've had to do is, because this fusion core comes with a positive negative lead that is attached to a 9-volt battery clip, which I've removed and extended the positive negative leads. And then it comes with your momentary switch connection here, which I have removed in order to get this through the base. But I thought it would be fun to show you the fusion core effect for those of you who perhaps have not seen it and want to see it. Here we go. Now, what you do is, what I have to do is I have to get this on my 9-volt battery. I could put this on my my transformer, but I don't need to. And then I just need to sort of touch these together quickly, and that turns it on, speed number 1, and there it is. It's a wonderful effect, and it's gonna do wonders for the bottom of my pod. It's the sort of classic Lost in Space thing that you have to have. Here, I'll speed it up just a little bit for you. And you can see it speeds up quite nicely. It's a lovely effect, and it works perfectly. And then, of course, there's Gonzo speed, and I'll touch it again. And now it's at Gonzo speed, and there it is. And then if you touch it again, it goes off, like that. Oh, there. Okay, so I've got my Fusion Core effect. Now, when you get this piece, this board, you can, if you chose to have it the other way up, these little 5mm LEDs that surround it sit a little too proud for me, and they don't sit nicely in the lens of the effect. So I flipped it upside down, and what I've had to do, which is fine, is I've cut a hole in the bottom of my pod so that when I attach my effect here, my core, as you can see, that drops in nicely. It sits up inside the base. And it'll be protected, obviously, but what you don't want to do is try and grind anything down here, or try to mesh this against the bottom of your Fusion Core. It just, you don't want to. You want it to be nice and clean. But you are going to have to do this if you want to use this. And then the other thing I've done here is I added a hole right here to take the rest of my wires. So what I'll do is I'll get everything down to a manageable 1 or 2 leads, and then they'll drop down this hole, and then I will feed them out through the bottom here, and that'll drop into the base. So it'll all drop into the base. And now, having said that, it leaves you with this sort of group of wiring. So what I will do is I will put on a little black sock, most likely a piece of shrink wrap for electrical, just to cover the whole thing, and that'll be black, and it'll go straight down into the base, so you won't really see that. And then I'll have everything controlled from the base, just a momentary switch and an on-off switch. So we'll get some nice blinky effects on the front of the ship, which will be fine. You'll get some nice glow from the interior, especially if you look through the door, which is in the back. So you'll see the console lit up, and you'll see those classic 4 lights lit up, and that should be sufficient. And what I'll do is I'll put some Tamiya clear on the various different photo etches pieces that we have. Here we have them. This is the only other thing I wanted to share with you. What I've done with my photo etch is I wiped it all down with alcohol, and after I'd wiped it down with alcohol just to get all the grease off of it, I hit it with some adhesion promoter from Dupacolor. I let that dry, and then after I'd hit it with the adhesion promoter, I then painted it in what's called bare metal steel from Tamiya. It comes in a rattle can, and I just love it. I love the color of this, and I love the feel of it. I think it's got a really nice feel, and everything pops. And then, of course, if you're going to put any kind of wash on this, which I will most likely do just to accentuate all the buttons, you get a really nice finish. So I'm really happy with that. And of course, I've got those decals to get behind the gauges, and if I have everything in white behind there, then I think you'll definitely be able to see some of it. So I really like it for this kind of thing. And then, of course, after I'd sprayed it and let that dry, I hit it with Dupacolor's matte finish, which, interestingly enough, it's designed for rims, if you're going to repaint your rims. But it really puts a solid covering on your photo etch, and you can't scratch it. And that's the key, is you don't want scratched photo etch, you know. So it's kind of one of those things, and it's actually, I have to say, it's one of those things that I've learned over the last couple of years that I'm actually quite proud of, which is, I know it sounds crazy, but the process of what surface you paint and what surface gets painted after you've installed lighting and what doesn't, it makes a huge difference to the amount of glue you have to use to keep things down, and you get a much cleaner finish. Anyway, I think you do. Okay, so I've got silly putty schmutz. That's weird. Okay, a little bit of silly putty schmutz. Okay, so moving right along, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a little bit of color on this pod, just to take a look at what we've got, and I will attach my photo etch as well to the surfaces after we've got them painted, and then I'm going to have to go into details. So we'll move right along. So I'm just going to start applying color to these pieces right now, and seeing if I can get a nice match for this thing. Okay, so we plow on. Deceptively complicated model for such a tiny box, but you know, just to sort of whine, if I might, about these instructions. You know, the landing gear, for instance, the rear landing gear has this shaft, and one end is slightly longer than the other. Well, I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I've tested it here. Yeah, let me bring this over, and you can see I did test it, and it appears to be fine. So it just sits in there, and eventually, so that should be fine. Just a quick clarification, because you know, sometimes stupidity knows no bounds over here. But hey, listen, I've never claimed to be a professional model maker. I'm learning. I know some of you just roll your eyes and go, okay, I'm tired of hearing that line, but it's true. I come to this shop every day trying to learn something and get better. I just do. And if some of you don't buy that, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I want to talk about this door. So, as you may recall, in the very beginning, I was complaining about the center hinge looking like that, and thinking, oh, something had been snapped off. Well, oh, sorry about that. Turns out that that's just not true. So the good folks over at Mobius, they do take about a week to get back to you, but they get back to you, and they're terrific. And he's sending me out a new door, bless his heart, because this one, I've put it in temporarily. These pegs are just pushed in here loosely. I've got a lot of cleaning up to do here, as you can see in the back. But I just wanted to get a test fit going. And sure enough, it does work. Although what I did was, like an idiot, I tried to grind this piece down because I thought I was going to have to repair it. And I went to repair it, so I've shortened it quite a bit. And so now it doesn't look right. So I've got a new door coming, and I'll just swap it out. It's not a problem. Yeah, that is it. It turns out that in the according to Mobius, who I guess had a good look at the filming miniature, it didn't have a center hinge, which sort of makes perfect sense in a weird sort of way, because if you think about how this swings open, if you try to attach the center hinge, it pulls away from the bottom of the door. It doesn't work. So that makes all the sense in the world. Of course, I didn't see it at first, which just goes to show you. Check, check, and double check. Okay, I wanted to share that with you. So here is my cockpit, and that is all ready to go. My light bulbs are working, and I can give you a quick preview here. Well, everything's working, or was working before I turned on the cameras. All right, but anyway, so let me try to do this. It's probably a lot easier for me to just put my transformer on. I don't know why I'm so lazy sometimes. It's stupid. But anyway. Okay. So there you go. And they're on. And I don't think you can see it very well from this angle. Maybe I'll give you the close-up, but the control surface is lit as well, and we're getting some nice color there. I've got a little bit of cleanup. I've got some wash I've got to clean up in there. And the front of this has my blinkies, which I just love because you know, they're random and they give this some life. So between these two exterior blinkies and my fusion core, you know, you get quite a little bit of drama out of this puppy. So I'm really happy with that. As I said, I'll clean up that control surface, but that's not a problem. Okay, so everything is ready to go. This fusion core is ready to be attached, but this centerpiece needs, what has to happen here is at some point I'm going to have to just, and I'm going to do it now actually, is I've got to drop this wire through my my opening that I've made here in this base. I made a little opening in the back here just to sort of thread that through. And what that will allow me to do is just sort of get that power cord in there, and that should be more than enough. I can then take the bulk of this here, and I can just put I'll put a little tie on that and clean that up, and that can all go up underneath this this empty space right there, and that'll be fine. That should be enough umbilical cord there, and that should allow me now to put my floor plate down there and continue on sort of putting everything together. And then the only thing I have to do is I've got to now feed this umbilical this power, this positive and negative wire, I'm sorry, I'm not thinking straight, through here like such, like that, and then get it out of the way of my fusion core, which sticks up there nicely. And then I'm going to just do a test fit here and see, and of course, as you can see, everything goes together. And so fusion core in, power in, and we should be good to go. And now all I have to do is feed this very gingerly through this sock, and hopefully I can get through. Let's see here. I'm not going to drive myself crazy. If I can't get it through, I'll just put a fatter sock on here. So anyway, that's what I've got to do. I've got to get this through. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a fatter sock on that. Now, what I want to say about this decision I made is that I've noticed, looking at other folk who have lit this model, that they're not coming through the fusion core. It's clean. They're coming through the back of the ship. And there's even one guy, there you go. There's even one guy who has been able to motorize the top. Now, I looked into that. It is possible, but it just simply means you're not going to be able to open the back door and look in, because you need to support that motor. But great fun. I mean, there's all kinds of fun things you can do with this kit, and there's plenty of room behind the panels to put fiber optics or even some PICO SMDs. There is plenty of room. But I don't know. I've said to this 1,000 times. I'll light them once, maybe twice, to show people. I never light them again. I don't know, just who I am. I don't have a shelf full of Christmas tree lights with them all on blinking and flashing and twinkling. I just don't. That's who I am. Okay, but as you can see now, that is fine, and that will drop into the base perfectly fine. I'm just going to drill a hole into my base, and then this will sit here, and you'll just see this piece of black. You won't see anything else. So that'll work out really, really, really fine. I don't even know if I should shrink this because it might get a little too warped. But boy, does that look great. That works like a charm, and then everything is in. So I can carefully now tie everything up, and I'll get everything sort of nailed down. And then we'll see this in its super rough state as I assemble it. So let me do that. Let me get this all glued down and this neatened up, and then we'll come back. Sometimes what goes on off camera is not pretty. And I do think about filming it once in a while. But I don't know what that would do to my head, you know, because there is a little bit of ego involved where you want it to look good, but by the same token, you also want to be honest about how complicated these builds are, or not complicated, or some of the tricks of the trade, or things that you've done that were mistakes, because I think that's part of this, is the community helping each other figure these things out, because they should be fun. They shouldn't be torture. Not that this is torture, but this is an example of what I'm talking about. So I've got my floor in, and by the way, if any of you are interested, there is approximately 2.5 millimeters of clearance under here. So if you want to add blinkies or whatever, you can channel, you can certainly channel out some of the grid work under this floorboard and run some wires, no problem. But you got to figure out a way to get them out. You know, they're either going to come out through a port in the back or in the floor. To me, it makes sense to put everything out through the floor, but that has its own challenges. But here I am trying to just sort of loosely figure out how to start assembling this. And I thought it was worth showing you. So my wires are neatly tucked inside the front control console. And there are 2 pegs here. There they are. See, there's one there, and there's one there. And the idea is that these pegs line up with these loops here, these little keying loops. And so you just pop in both sides, and it sits in nicely. And then if you look over the front of this, you can see, let me get you up. You can see that this creates the front of your ship. And what I'm seeing here is, yeah, you can just see it right, you can see it actually right there. There's a little bit of warpage, that I've got to deal with to get that glued in. But if I try to glue that in before I've put this piece in, which is the front of this console, I think I'm going to be in trouble, because it needs to line up with these two pegs on the peg receivers here on the floor. Right here. There's one here and then there's one here. And so what's happening is, and beautifully, I did not break this. This peg here was like this out of the box. I had one. You see, I've got one there, but the other locator peg was not. It's there, but it's very thin. So what I'm doing is as I'm lining this up, I'm realizing that the front of this console has to go on before the front of your ship goes on. Because otherwise you won't get this to sit down. So it's fiddly. It's really fiddly to get this all to line up. Now it does line up, and I'm looking at it here, except as I'm looking at it, now I can do a little better job there. Okay, good. So there. So that's how it's supposed to look. Just like that. And however, you know, there's some challenges here to get this attached correctly. And I'm looking, and what I'm realizing is that I can attach this front plate no problem. But when I do that in the correct position, and that is the correct position, you realize that you're not lined up underneath. Here, and I'll show you what I mean. Here's the close-up of that. This gap. So if you line this up correctly, and you rock this forward the way it's supposed to be, it doesn't line up. So I've got none of my plastic surfaces are, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, when you work with Bandai kits, the engineering is amazing. Here, you are going to have to push these around and bully them a little bit to get them to where you want them to be. So I'm going to be futzing with that, and I think the best thing for me to do is to, because curiously, if I get this into the right position like this, it isn't correct, because that needs to line up. Now, what you could do, and what I'm realizing here is you can actually glue in this piece. You can glue in this piece here on an angle, I think, and then just let it rock down when it's dry. I don't know. I'm going to have to give this some thought, because it's not lining up nicely at all. So there's the conundrum, and there's no explanation about this in these very, I'm sorry, I'm going to use the word pathetic instructions. There, I said it. Just pathetic. But hey ho, it's all good. I'm going to take my time here, and I'm going to glue this in nice and flush. And I'm going to move around and just do this bit by bit. And then once I've done that, I've got some flex in this plastic. I can feel it. And so I'm going to use that to my advantage, I think. Because that will allow me to sit this plate in here. It'll allow me to push it up and then key it down. And I should be okay. But I don't want to do it, I don't want to try and do that all in one foul swoop. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that should help me. Now, before I get too carried away here, let me just check something out. I just want to see if it makes a difference. If you do this first. It is interesting because it does kind of, you do get to see it, but it's not sitting nicely. Now that does go into there. I can see that. And that's not sitting in there nicely. So that edge isn't sitting in there nicely. And you can't do this second. You have to do this first, it looks like. It's interesting, isn't it? I think it's interesting because it's how you kind of see this all going together. And it's got to sit flush, and when it's in there flush, it's not seating nicely. It's not seating nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna figure out one side, get it all glued up, because it's going to take me a bit of time to kind of sit here and just quietly look at this problem, so that when I start to seal this up, I don't do something stupid, because it shouldn't be a fight. If it's a fight, then it's human error. I guarantee it. Okay, so let me contemplate this, and if I have any revelations, I will come back and say, okay, this was the problem, or that was the problem. But as I'm looking at it, guys, it's just the plastic is not it's not coming together nicely. Okay, so let me zen out here. And then I'll come back and we will figure out what happened. Well, kicking and screaming, she came together. It's a little wacky. Not to continue to belabor the point about the instructions, but I found them to be incredibly useless. And even though you read along and it says put part B 15 into part C 16. Glue part 16 to part 14, that's about as far as they go. So if there's an up or a down or a left and a right, they don't call for it, except on the trees themselves, the sprue trees themselves, where for the landing gears, there is a little tab saying top to help you orient them. So grateful for that. I'll take anything I can get. But I think to myself, for the for beginners or for average builders, they're not the greatest of instructions, but it is all coming together. There is an absolute keyed way you have to put this model together, and it's awkward, it's fiddly. You can get there, but it's fiddly, and you've got to be patient. What I'm doing now is I'm just adding a few details here. The lights are on, the blinkies are on. I will show you everything in a final reveal. but it is time to start putting the final trim on this. And so that's what I'm working on now. The antenna goes in. I do think that somebody could have an absolute blast with this model if they wanted to, because you could absolutely get this antenna spinning and it would be awesome. So that's something you can definitely think about. And you can go to town on blinkies, because with the rear door, which is sort of the entrance into this thing, there's enough room for you to look inside and see various things. I didn't go that far. I'm just, doing I would call it a basic build-up, to be honest with you. I'm not inspired to do any more with this model. I could have put it in a more of a planetary diorama. I could have done a little more with the lighting. I did play with some lighting ideas at first for putting fiber optics in and then figuring out how to run them. But at the end of the day, everything does, in my opinion, have to either go through your fusion core and into the base or plug in somewhere else. So either way, you've got to get power into this thing, unless you're going to independently put some kind of battery source in there with a switch. And I don't know. I don't think there's enough room for that, although cleverer people than I will definitely be able to do that. So I'm starting to put the finishing touches on the on her. I just noticed I've got a little bit of my that sucks. I just noticed a little bit of my Photoetch just came away on the side here, but that's okay. We can deal with that. There. It's so funny with CA glue and me. I don't know what it is. You can stick it to your fingers all day. You can stick something to the mat all day, but something you really want to stick to something else, really a challenge. But I have found a couple of things on the market that I think are really curious. One of them is this stuff. It's called Tricky Stick, and it's from Deluxe. It's the same guys who do the putties. Here, I'll show you this. I've had a lot of success with this, helping with getting things to stick where they don't want to. So on painted surfaces and things like that. Now you've got to be very sparing. It won't do a huge area. It'll do a little dab, and it will hold it quite well. But like with all things, if you're going to put CA on a painted surface, it's gonna be very fragile. Okay. So what I've got here is I've got the front grid, and that can go in. But I think what I'll do first is I will let me put this in first. This antenna here goes in there. Do that. So I'll do that one first, I think. So we'll put that in. Yeah, I like that. I like the way that looks. It's looking good. And then I'll put the other side on, just so that way I can orientate everything else around that. Okay, so I could get a little bit of glue there. Let's get this on. It's a really fun, I think, sort of trip down memory lane. And that's what I really love about this kit, is that if you are an Irwin Allen fan, this kit is one of those things that it really is quite nostalgic, because Irwin Allen absolutely loved to reuse all of his things in all of his various different different shows. Very nice, very clean. My blinkies are on and my Fusion core is running, but I'll show you that in the final reveal. Well, I can tip it to camera, I suppose, here very carefully, and you'll see that there it is. There's the Fusion core spinning quite nicely. And we can speed that up or slow it down. Here, I'll show you it's starting to speed up. There's a faster speed, and there's max speed, and that's off. So we've got that, courtesy of Ralph over at Tenor Controls. Okay, so it's sort of all coming together. I've got a few little touch-ups I want to do, and I want to do a little bit of aging, but for the most part I'm really happy with the way this came out. So let me just do some final touches and we'll come back and we'll do sort of a spin around, take a look inside, and I'll give you some final thoughts. So if you want to do some serious research on the Space Pod, in my opinion, don't go to Lost in Space. Go to Land of the Giants in an episode called Home Sweet Home, and you'll get a really nice look at the inside and the outside of this ship, because Irwin Allen, being Irwin Allen, loved to, as we know, reuse his monsters and his ships and his spaceships and everything else all the way he could. He was thrifty, and in those days you had to be. You know, money was tight. And especially when he was piloting things, unlike today where networks own the shows and they pay to have them piloted, in those days, most of the time you had to pay for your projects. And it was interesting because a lot of the money that Irwin Allen got early on was from Groucho Marx. He helped him fund a lot of his productions. So go figure, but there you go. So here we are, and I've got it very basic on this platform. Now I am going to print a Lost in Space little moniker for it. I built one for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and it was a little large. My dear friend Jeff Fink's been helping me out with those. They're going to be available, as I understand it, for you, the print files. If you want to get the print files, you can go to Partworks, Ian Campbell's Partworks Upgrade over in the UK, and he'll sell you the file. So that's good. But I'm going to get one that's about 75%, maybe 60% of what I had, and that will go nicely here in front. I'm really happy with this representation. I think it's really fun. So there's your Fusion core running. That's from Tenor Controls, and a couple of blinkies I've got, which I think really bring this thing to life. They're from Evans Design, and obviously the Photoetch is from Paragraphix. So with all of those things, you can put together something that's a beautiful representation, an absolute beautiful representation. And in the back here, I'll open this up for you, and you can just here, I'll pick up the camera, so I'll be very careful. You can see I've got all four of those side lights are lit. And I've got some nice light coming from the control panel there, so I'm very happy with that. And I think you'll see here that there's plenty of room to dress this. You can have all kinds of fun with it. I'm going to leave it clean just for my representation, other than the plaque that will go in front. I've got the momentary switch in the back, and I can unplug it, because if any of you know me, you know that I'm just not a big fan of plugging everything in like Christmas trees and having it run. It's just not who I am. I had a little bit of difficulty putting this kit together because of the instructions. A lot of you have heard me complain about the instructions, but other than that, it's a relatively simple kit, and it's a clean kit. And I think if you're going to go around the world on your Irwin Allen excursion, I think you got to have this. You got to have the space pod. There's a whole bunch of fun Irwin Allen models out there to build. I was able to build a couple of them over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the flying sub, and now this. I'm going to sneak in the Sea View because I'm desperate to do the Sea View, and that'll probably I'll probably start that after the 1350 refit special edition that's coming in a few weeks. But I'm going to put out one more video about the refit because I have some updates and some things I wanted to share with you before we get to painting. And then we'll be diving into another kit. I don't quite know what that is going to be yet, but I will definitely get most of my Irwin Allen stuff done this year because I really want my Irwin Allen collection to be complete. I really hope that you get this kit, and if you do have it, come on, you know what I'm going to say. Don't leave it in a box. Get it out and build it. And please, if you've just found my channel and you like the content, please like and subscribe. It means an awful lot to me. Follow me on Spruverse Instagram @Spruverse. Drop me a line, spruverse@gmail.com. And or obviously leave a comment below. But as always, please, I wish all of you be well, be safe, build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.